All right, what's up, everybody? Hopefully, everybody had a wonderful day. It was a good day here in Texas. I mean, it was a little hot, but you know, that's Texas. All right, so tonight, what I'm going to be doing is going over a few images that I want to retouch, but yet I have not decided which of the ones that I have here so far is going to be my subject for tonight. Most of these really don't need a lot of retouching. I see some skin defects in a few of these that could be improved upon, but most of them are relatively okay. So let's take a look at this one. And you can start to see there are some pimples, a few little things that could be touched up. And that's going to be ideal for the type of Photoshop retouching that I do. So let's adjust the exposure a little bit. I've really been enjoying this new Wacom tablet, but I think I'm going to upgrade to the larger version. This small is ideal, at least I thought it would be ideal for, you know, going on location and things like that. But if you see here in the front of if I place it here in front of my computer, it's relatively small, but it has decent travel. But I think I would benefit more from the medium size for this same tablet. I don't see a need to invest in the Pro version of this tablet, because the features that it offers I don't think are going to really benefit me that much. But let's do a couple of things here on this photo before we take it over to Photoshop. Let's see if we can harmonize our skin tone. And if you guys are not sure which application I'm working in right now, I am in Capture One. I want to bring the saturation down just a touch. Yeah, that's pretty good. And I'm not going to do any color grading yet, but I'll probably bring it back to Lightroom for the, Lightroom, to Capture One for the final color grade. So I'm going to go ahead and open this in Photoshop. It still looks a wee bit green to me. So let's see if we can white balance this a little bit better. There we go. And then let's bring this exposure down just a touch more. And let's look at our whites. Let's go ahead and zoom out. See what we're getting here. Highlights are a little blown from the lighting, but I think that's something that we can easily take care of in Photoshop. But everything else looks pretty good. I mean, there's really good clarity in the skin, sharpness. Yeah, I mean, good detail in the eyes, the makeup, the hair. You know, there are some patchy areas that, you know, obviously we need to address. This one here might be a big concern here on the forehead because her skin was wet. As you can see, her hair was also. So that added to some of the shininess. So we're just going to kind of roll with that shininess and just try to smooth the skin out. So let's just go ahead and open this in Photoshop. So usually what I do, like in all of these images, I go in and I start to assess the areas that I want to clean up. So I'm going to create a layer mask. I'm just going to create an extra layer, and I'm going to show you guys real simply how I usually go in. Like I told you before, this area here is a concern. I do see some acne in different places. Oh, that's not one of them. Let's see. There's a number of flyaway hairs that I might want to address, you know, right around here, here. See if there's anything else that's major. No. Now the hairs that are off to, if we zoom out here, the flyaways that are like over here, I'm not that worried about, like, well, maybe this one here, but most of these others, you know, like kind of in this area, I may come in and touch these up over here a little bit, but that's, for the most part, that's about it, you know, for what I see for this specific image. So there's not a lot that needs to be done here when it comes to the first adjustments. So we're going to get rid of that layer. And we're going to do something a little bit different than you guys have seen me do the frequency separation before, where I usually duplicate the layer. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit within the frequency separation, because I've had a few people ask me about that procedure. So we're going to just run the basic frequency separation on the existing layer that's here, the background layer. And we're going to go in and set our radius, our blur radius to, in this case, maybe about 19. We want to try and maintain as much of the texture in her skin as possible. So normally what I would do in the beginning is I would have duplicated the background layer, then I would have gone in and done all of my touch-ups on that background layer before running frequency separation. But this time what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the texture layer to clean up a lot of the imperfections in the skin. So a really easy way to do that is to create a stamp layer, a black and white layer, so you can see better exactly what it is that you're looking for, all of the different imperfections. So we're just going to create a black and white layer, and then we're going to crush the blacks, bring down the reds basically, and it gives you a better idea of what's on the skin, what's going to be an issue. So like I said before, the forehead area I think is going to be an issue, but that's going to be something that I'll have to tackle in a different way when it comes to the texture. But we're going to go down here to the texture layer, and I'm just going to try and do this the easy way. We're just going to grab the spot healing brush, and I'm just going to go in and just start kind of cleaning up some of these areas. So the hair. And usually the spot healing brush will do a really good job. If you're missing areas or you don't think it's getting exactly everything you need, then you could always use your clone stamp. It just depends on, you know, how detailed you need the image to be. But let's zoom in here a little bit and look at the forehead. So like I said, that's going to take a little bit of work, but I think we can knock out most of these, at least to a degree that it won't be so obvious. And you just have to take your time and go in and try and get the ones that are standing out the most. Now, another approach to this would be to do this with dodging and burning, a little micro dodging and burning to go in and try and take out some of these imperfections. But with the amount in this specific area, that will be very, very time consuming. But it just depends on how much time you want to devote to a specific image. So, you know, there are some images that I may spend, you know, hours working on, because, you know, perfection is everything when it comes to one of your bigger clients, especially your fashion clients and stuff like that, because you know those images are going to wind up on you know, billboards and larger prints and things like that, you know, in galleries. So you definitely want to spend more time, cleaning these up as best as possible. Now this image is not a good example of, I didn't photograph this, so let's just be clear with that. This is not one of my images. But usually I find some really high-end images that I want to retouch, and I usually look for the ones that give me a challenge, where there's something wrong that maybe I would have addressed differently, preparing for the shoot or something like that, or my lighting, or picking the different types of modifiers that could possibly prevent some of this shine, or your exposure levels and things like that. If you guys have watched any of my other videos before, I'm a big advocate for shooting tethered, because a lot of these things, if you see them when the images are coming in live, and you're able to really identify, where there's going to be a big problem, especially if you're the one that's going to be doing the retouching. Now, a lot of photographers and a lot of photography studios, they outsource their retouching, to someone else. So they, kind of give them that problem. But if you are retouching these things yourself, then you want to make your job as easy on yourself as possible. And the easiest way to do that, I think I need to go and adjust my pen sensitivity. I think it's just a little too sensitive. Let me see. Adjust this tablet setting, because I think the pressure is way too low. Bring that up. Maybe even a little bit more. Okay. So let's get back to it. So a lot of these, you can just go in and just kind of draw over them. Like I said, that's one of the reasons I really like, working with a tablet. And before I got the Wacom tablet, I was using my iPad. And what I would do is I would just use Sidecar, and I would just send the image over to my iPad, and then use the Apple Pencil to try and touch up some of these. And it worked for the most part. But, for things like this, it was just perfect. But when it comes to like frequency separation and using a mixer brush, you don't have the same pen control, the pressure control. Let's look at what my pressure settings are right now. See if I'm getting, well, I'm not going to show under this tool, but we'll look at those when we get to the frequency separation part of this, because we want to make sure that our mixer brush is getting proper pen pressure. I mean, like there's a lot of little hairs and things like that. And I mean, usually if you're doing a shoot, guys, you're new photographers, or, even some of you more experienced guys that are, trying to get into fashion and to editorial work and stuff like that. Spend a little bit of time looking at your images, as they come in, and, don't be shy. Tell the makeup artist, tell the model, or, designer, or whomever it is, when you see something that could be a problem that needs to be addressed, so that they're going to be happy with a better result, because you're spending a little bit more time trying to ensure that, you're capturing exactly what they have in mind. The problem we have a lot of times as photographers is that, people will come to us and they'll say, oh, I want this captured, and so on and so on. But they're not concerned about, how much time is going to go into the editing. Now, my editing rate is separate from my normal shoot rate. So, I make that very clear early on, so that what I'm doing is I'm letting them know. So if we can, take care of some of these things that will speed up my workflow, one, it's going to get the image back to you that much faster. And two, you won't be spending additional amounts, large amounts of money, for retouching, if we can, address some of these things during the shoot in the makeup stages, it can be, well, especially hair and makeup. Now, if you have a really good makeup artist and they're watching, as these things come through tethered, they're going to know, they'll see something. I've had my makeup artist come over to me, or signal to me that she sees something on the image, that needs to be adjusted. And then we'll just, take a break so she can get in there and fix something in the makeup or adjust the hair or something like that. So, but anyway, most of these we did all on the texture layer. And let's zoom out. And let's turn that layer off, everything off so you can see the before. And then we turn off the color layer. You see nothing but the texture. So that's when you can really get in here and you can see all of the skin texture that you're trying to preserve, during this process. So like right here, I see, something that obviously needs to be addressed, like these little pimples here, and this is just a really good way to see them, things that you couldn't, maybe you'd overlook when you're looking at the color of the image. So you can really get in there and you can start to see all these little imperfections and you can start to, paint them out. Okay. So that looks pretty good to me. All right, so we're going to go to the next phase, which is we're going to come down and use our mixer brush to try and mix in some of these colors and blend some of these imperfections. So we're going to just come over and choose our mixer brush. Then always make sure your settings are proper, to what you want them to be. Usually my wet's at about 9, my load's about 75, mix 90, and flow at 100%. And I have clean the brush after every stroke. So you want the second icon here selected, not the first one. And then you also want your pressure sensitivity to be selected. So if we go back over and look at our pen settings, we can see, under shape dynamics, what's selected. We can come down to, say, transfer, and we can set that to pen pressure. Smoothing is already set for pen pressure, and so is the shape dynamics. But the other thing we want to make sure of is that we are on a soft round brush. Like this is a hard brush, so we're going to come back up here and choose a soft brush. And then, since we're already in here, we can go ahead and adjust the size of the brush. Yeah, that's good. So then from there, you just want to go in and start mixing those colors, where you see a lot of these inconsistencies in the skin color, especially in this patchy area right here. You just want to go in and just try and mix those as best you can. And there's another technique that we can use afterwards where we can actually blur this a little bit better to try and clean this up even more. And you just want to paint over those areas wherever you see them, and just get the colors to blend. Now usually what I do here is I turn off the texture layer and I'm only working with the colors. And after a while you won't even need this black and white layer. And you can just really get in here and start blending these colors. Everywhere you see an area that needs to be mixed. Just mix it down. Now always try and keep, well, don't try, it's a must. When you're mixing, make sure you're mixing, like tones. So if you're mixing highlights, only mix the highlights. Don't blend the highlights with the shadows or with the midtones or something like that. You want to keep those as separate as possible. And you have to also be aware of the fact that as you mix, you can distort the shape of the face depending on how much you're mixing and where you're mixing. So usually I just go in and I get this as close as possible because I'm still going to go in afterwards and further blur the color layer. This is just one step because we had already, did all of our touch-ups on the texture layer. And then we're going in here and we're doing our color with the mixer brush. Now here on the bridge of the nose, be really careful mixing there because that can distort the shape of the nose. So even if you do just maybe a couple of strokes just to make sure. I was watching someone's video the other day and I noticed that their wet was up at like 50 or something like that. You never want your wet to be that high because if you're painting, that's fine, if you're doing some kind of painting. But if you are doing work like this, you will be moving colors around so much that the person won't even look anything like the original image. So that's why, most guys that you see doing this technique, they're going to keep the wet down somewhere between 5 and 10%. And just mix the colors, like I said, the ones that obviously go together. And you can make this like a little game, for yourself. I mean, that's how I do. I love to retouch. I really enjoy the photo taking aspect of, my job. But I think retouching, and, as a photographer or creative, you can almost look at the image before you even capture it. And you can imagine what the image is going to look like once you're finished. Once you say, okay, I got the image, that's exactly what I wanted to capture. And the steps, you have a plan, you have a blueprint as to what you're going to do next. Sometimes, like when they're in the makeup chair a second or third time, whatever it is they're changing, wardrobe, that's why I really wanted a tablet, is because it gives me the advantage that I can really get in there and just knock out a quick edit, even though it's going to be rough. They kind of get the idea, the designer, everyone, the models, they can see exactly, where the image is going to be going. And it inspires them to be a little bit more creative because they feel more comfortable when they see the images and they're like, wow, okay, that looks amazing. Let me do this other thing or whatever it is, But it's a team, It takes a village, and I believe that honestly. If you have good people around you, good makeup artists, models, they're going to come and go. But, when you find a good model that you can work with, and you have an opportunity to, suggest that model to a potential client, do it. Because if you worked with them before and you know that they do good work and they make your job easier, and, hopefully, they'll return the favor, when, jobs are coming up and they'll say, you know, hell, I know this amazing photographer that I work with a lot of times, and you know, he does or she does really good work, and that's a, you know, a big part of the industry is promoting each other. So I think we're pretty good with this. We'll look at it. Let's turn the texture layer back on and our black and white layer off. And then we can zoom out. And then look at the before and after. So that's before, that's after. It's not huge difference, and that's what you want. You just want to go in and really just clean up and make it look like the makeup was perfect, you know, the hair was perfect, the skin, and you can start to see even in here where we had that area, there was a problem. If I turn this frequency separation off, you can see all the things there that we were able to, you know, clean up. So, and then like I said, I'm still going to go in with the lasso tool and soften the color, blend the color a little bit better. So the way I usually do that is I, you know, select this color layer, and then I go up and I grab my lasso tool. So let's start here. And actually we want our feather. Let's make that about 25. And then we're just going to go in here and just start drawing. That wasn't a good selection. So you just draw around the area that you want to blur. And then go up to your filters. Blur, Gaussian blur. Now this should be pre-selected to the amount of blur that you did when you originally did the frequency separation. So just like you're doing it again. So we're just going to hit that blur there. Then we're going to go, whoops. And we're just going to grab this area here. And then you just go in and you just go through all the different areas, you know, here in the T-zone.